Welcome to Genesis Unleashed, where we unleash the truth of Genesis.
And answer the question, if the animals got off the ark in the Middle East, how did they get to nations like Australia? Welcome to Genesis Unleashed once again. This time we're going to look at a question that is it's a pretty popular question, and it has to do with, you read through the Bible, you come to the story of Noah's flood, the animals get off the ark in the Middle East, and a question is, well, how did they get from the Middle East to all of the, some of the island nations like Australia around the world? In South America, that's pretty far from the Middle East if you're walking.
Right.
How did they get there? It's a big question.
And we're talking just over 4,000 years to do so as well. So there's a time scale attached, and of course evolutionists, whether skeptics, atheists, etc., or Christians that have come to believe in evolution have said, well, this is impossible. If evolution isn't true, didn't kangaroos evolve in Australia? How did they get there? Why are only they there and not in other places? So yeah, we hear this question a lot.
All right, that's our question. Let's look at some answers. The first answer is land bridges.
Right.
There was an ice age at the time of, after the flood. Both creationists and evolutionists believe in an ice age. In the biblical context, the flood is a perfect trigger for generating an ice age, lasting for several hundred years after the flood. Now, how does that fit in with answering our question today? Well, an ice age would have lowered ocean levels by 400 to 500 feet, something like that. Today, if you lower ocean levels by only 200 feet, all of the continents, including Australia, are connected by land.
Right.
So the animals could have simply walked.
Right. And another answer would be plate tectonics. Many years ago, plate tectonics, 50, 60 years ago, that wasn't an accepted theory, really. It was a creationist who came up with that concept that the plates, have moved and stuff. And of course, evolutionists have accepted that now. And so it could be that plate tectonics, the fact that, the plates would move up and down, perhaps they were shifted and came up and, again, allowed land bridges to occur,
where there's currently oceans today.
That's right, may have fallen.
There's some examples from modern times. Take Krakatoa, for example. That erupted in 1883, and for some time that little island was lifeless, but then it was populated by lizards and worms and even birds and snakes and some mammals even. So there's an example from modern times.
And so these creatures have traveled across water. That was completely unexpected, and we've got other examples. For example, Surtsey.
Right.
I mean, Krakatoa was an island that was in existence, but Surtsey actually came into existence in 1963. So there's no island. All of a sudden, there's this volcanic eruption. You've got this island comes up out of the island, and within 2 years, by 1965, people were documenting the fact that there was plant life on the island, insects. And today there's over 50 different species of plants, and that's growing every year. So it's easy to see, even though it's surprising, to find that creatures can somehow get across vast expanses of water and populate places, even if there is water between them.
Now, there's a widespread belief that marsupials evolved in Australia, but there have been living marsupials, opossums, found in North and South America, and fossil marsupials found all around the world, on continents all around the world.
Right.
A bigger shock came in 1991 when a fossil platypus was found in South America.
That's right. So since evolutionists believe that all organisms have a common ancestor, migration between Australia and other areas has to be conceded as possible by scientists, whether you're a creationist or evolutionist or not. If we have live living platypus today in Australia and fossil ones in South America.
Right. Did the kangaroo hop all the way to Australia? Well,
from the Middle East?
There have been isolated reports of individual animals making startling journeys thousands of kilometers.
Right.
Like rabbits were introduced to a small part of Australia, and now they cover all of Australia. And they covered Australia in a short amount of time.
Right.
People thought rabbits couldn't possibly expand that fast.
Right. So you're not talking about one animal actually traveling that far. Obviously, they live and they repopulate, yes. And then it grows and grows. fossils. Some people say, yeah, but wait a sec. If all the animals, got off the ark somewhere in Turkey and then moved apart, well, how come we don't find their fossils there?
Right.
Right. But the thing is, there used to be lions in Israel, but we don't find any fossil lion. So we're going by historical documents. For example, the bison used to populate North America.
Right. The Great Plains.
Yeah, we don't find bison fossils. So the thing is, it's a very specialized event to cause fossilization. That's why, of course, creationists talk about the Great Flood, because that would be exactly what you'd expect: rapid burial of a huge amount of sediment, which would create fossils.
Another objection is that the specialization of animals that we have today. Koalas, for example, survive on a eucalyptus diet pretty much exclusively.
Right.
But that specialization has come over time. It's been discovered actually that koalas are sort of addicted to eucalyptus. It's like a drug.
They're born junkies, actually.
Born junkies, yeah. They wouldn't have been that specialized in the past, and of course evolutionists know that very well. You have natural selection and artificial selection to some in some varieties that specialize animals, so that today they only eat a certain type of food. Wouldn't have been that way in the past.
Because koalas can eat 20-some different types of gum leaves, and koalas that are weaned, from a very bottle-fed ones that are not fed eucalyptus right off the bat, they can eat different kinds of diet. Things like giant pandas, they normally eat bamboo shoots and things like that.
Right.
But it's been discovered that they also eat small animals, and so. You can see too that maybe creatures were eating one thing in the past and now they're eating new things because perhaps just the food availability is different. And so it doesn't mean that they have to eat what they're eating, is what I'm saying. Is in the past, maybe there were different things, they were eating different things because of different opportunities.
So there's solutions to those kinds of problems. Here's another possibility for the distribution of animals and perhaps people after the flood. Vegetation mats. You can see a picture here of a floating vegetation mat. You have things like slow-moving creatures like the sloth, and people say, well,
how did he get there?
There's the ultimate lazy creature. Yeah. How did the sloth get from the Middle East to where we find sloths now? Well, you have these possibilities, these floating vegetation mats.
Right, and evolutionists have proposed that even certain primates may have traveled hundreds of kilometers on floating log mats, etc. For example, iguanas have been found to be doing that too, traveling in between islands on floating vegetation. Also, in a lot of recent literature, you'll see the suggestion, even in an evolutionary framework, of people suggesting that perhaps we were better boat builders in the past than have been previously thought. Yeah. Of course, creationists have always believed that because we believe Noah built a great boat. But you'll see that this notion that perhaps we were taking animals around the world with us as we were traveling in the past. For example, here's a picture, a mosaic from the Villa Romana del Casale, and it's located in Sicily. And this villa was built between 310 and 340 AD, possibly as a hunting lodge or something like that. And what you can see in the pictures is it depicts people transporting exotic animals, things like elephants and what looks like an emu or an ostrich and things like that. Now, what was that for? Maybe for the Roman games or something, we don't know, but it just shows that people have recorded this in the past. Humans obviously have the ability to capture animals and move them around different continents.
That's yet another possibility for answering this question.
Exactly.
As to how did animals and people get distributed after the flood?
Right.
For more information, click on the articles below the screen here and go to creation.com for all your questions on the creation evolution issue.